Hello and good evening to you. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We'll have news up here at Desawe Kanda. Also live on TV and on Facebook, the SCV channel 279 all across the world on freenews.com. Tonight, with less than 24 hours to the much anticipated Asin North by-election, both parties are rounding up their campaigns, as we've seen in the last period yesterday. While the IGP today has also issued a directive to keep the exercise safe and peaceful. We have some reactions to that as well. Stay with me. We are on the ground. We're connecting with our colleagues live tonight from the Asin North constituency. Also, it's reported looming LPG shortage as petroleum tanker drivers have ceased to work in an attempt to get government to fix deplorable roads within the heavy industrial area enclave. We'll be getting some updates from the key stakeholders on this particular one. Also, the Bank of Ghana has directed all banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions to deploy armor-plated bullion vans for their cash operations with immediate effect. We'll be speaking to some experts on this, especially the Defense Industrial Holdings Company, who say they have the expertise to manufacture these armored bullion vans. Stay with us. We're very heavy on the Asin North by-election. Tomorrow, we're here on your election command center. Already have our strong men on the ground who'll be connecting with us every step of the way. Connect with us. The hashtag is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Brief.
Member of Parliament for South Dine, Roxy Nelson Dafiamapo, has kicked against directive by the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu Dampare, on a zero tolerance of weapons in the Asin North constituency ahead of the Tuesday by-election. The directive, according to the police chief, is intended to eliminate potential conflict during the polls.
The IGP has no power to vary the conditions of service of a sitting member of Parliament. In the same way, he has no power to vary the conditions of service of a superior court judge in this republic. So for him to simply issue a statement and say that bodyguards to members of Parliament should surrender their weapons to the nearest police station is unlawful and is unconstitutional.
Organized labor has threatened a nationwide strike from Monday, July 10, if management of Sunon Asogli fails to reinstate 3 dismissed workers. Secretary General of TUC and spokesperson of Organized Labor issued the warning at a news conference in Accra.
All workers of Ghana are going to stay at home if our 3 brothers at Sunon Asogli Power Ghana Limited are not reinstated.
The Ghana National Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union has directed members to lay down their tools until the government commits to a timeline for fixing the bad roads in the heavy industrial area, which transport over 6.7 million litres of petroleum products daily. But Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers say the impact of the strike will only be felt if it goes beyond 3 days, as there will be shortages recorded at the various fuel retail outlets.
If they don't commit themselves, for us to see that they committed themselves by fixing the road, this strike will continue.
The Narcotics Control Commission, Ministry of Interior and stakeholders have urged the public to avoid stigmatizing and discriminating against drug users, as it may worsen their mental health and prevent seeking assistance. Drug abuse is a significant concern in Ghana, especially among youth who play a vital role in health, economy and productivity. However, there is a lack of advocacy against stigmatizing drug abusers, requiring immediate attention.
We are not interested in demonizing or actually, stigmatizing the users, when the real offenders are those, the big dealers in drugs, who are making the money.
election we am nka kwan komunye etien tena wan se by election bebe kromu.
Should we wait until there is a by-election before the roads will be constructed? We can't change our minds.
Nka yempene sa ewiase de mansotwe enfahwe ma yin na ekromeni so that
we are all citizens. We don't like the court litigation.
And so still, me am sure about a betu ya, me am pipi nepa. Any and dying some your question. Your question, oh chance, what you have.
They're supposed to be here in a way because this by-elections is not easy. Yes, because this can determine what will happen to Parliament. Because if we look at the Parliament, we have 137, 137. So this election is very, very, very necessary. So if they are here, they deserve to be here.
Who is a by-election? The bad sanity.
We only pray for a peaceful election. What is happening now in Asin North is a characteristic of by-elections.
Well, look, security is one of the key issues ahead of this by-election. Very, very crucial. It's something that we're going to be spending some time on. But one of the constituents, in fact, the people you just heard are Asin North constituents. And some of them are talking about the issues and what's happening on the ground and the fact that, look, they've seen a lot happening over the last 3 weeks, but their minds are still made up on which direction they're going to go. But on that point about Parliament, and that's what the kind of attention and the impact we've seen in this by-election, Asin North by-election is all about. This 8th Parliament has been heavy on numbers, because until now, we saw a 137 for the NDC, 137 for the NPP, and then an independent candidate who decided to do business with the NPP, and so they had that majority that they needed. But with what we are seeing now, this is how things are going to play out, at least if we, based on the kind of information that we have so far, is actually what is going to play out, especially ahead of tomorrow. This is it. The NPP maintains its 137. The NDC now, based on this particular development, is down by 136. And then the independent candidate, who is the second deputy speaker of parliament. So this is why this particular constituency is a very, very, very crucial one. And you've seen a lot of activity ahead of the by-election tomorrow. In fact, the entire government machinery has been moved to this constituency, and we've seen what's going on there. The NPP wants to cement its hold in this 8th Parliament, but the NDC as well wants to, as it were, maintain the status quo, the 137 with that independent candidate. This is how things look like with this particular constituency. The Asin North constituency is where we've seen his circle there in the central region. This is a swing constituency in a swing region. The central region has been described as a swing region in most of the elections that we've seen since 1992 to date. They decide skirt and blouse in most cases and decide who to vote for regardless of what you do or what you tell them. So we'll see how things play out going into the by-election tomorrow, right? Now, take a look at what happened in between 1996, this particular Asin North constituency, to the year 2020. A brief. 1996, the NDC actually won this constituency by some 63%. In terms of the parliamentary history, the historical performance of the parliament, that's elections of this Asin North constituency. In the year 2000, the NPP took over. 2004. In fact, Kennedy Japan has won this seat on the ticket of the NPP within this period, this blue period that you see 3 times in there. Then the NDC won in 2012 because then the Asin Central Constituency was created. Then Kennedy Japan contested on that particular constituency. You see in 2016 as well, the NPP then came back and won. With some 56.8%. What's actually interesting is that if you look at the 2016 elections, and I'm going to fast forward to the 2016 elections for good reason, because it paints a certain picture about what we are looking at going into tomorrow. In terms of the presidential, and it's very important, it's not just about the parliamentary, because you'll see what happened in 2020 in terms of the presidential. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in 2016 won this constituency with the presidential with a little over 14,000 votes. You see John Mahama there with 12,266. There was just a little, about 200 votes, 2,000 votes difference, a little over 2,000 votes difference. Now look at this. For the parliamentary, you have Abena Durowa Mensah, who contested in 2020 as the NPP's parliamentary candidate. She won in 2016. And look at the margin, about 5,000 votes thereabout, with the NDC's candidate as well, Samuel Ambre. What's happened in this 2020, for the 2020 elections? We saw the NPP maintaining its candidate. But then the NDC changed its candidate to James Jatikwesen. But this by-election, here's what's happened. The NPP has changed its candidate to Charles Opoku. And then we have the LPG in there as well. What we are seeing this time around is James Jatikwesen being maintained by the NDC. This change by the NPP is what some political watchers are saying is going to prove very crucial going into tomorrow, because both candidates, that's Charles Opoku and James Jatikwesen, are from Asimbreko. And that's crucial, because then we'll see how the voting pattern will play out. Because James Jatikwesen won in 2020 in Asimbreko because the NPP's candidate in 2020, the 2020 that's the general elections in 2020, was not from Asimbreko. Now, Charles Opoku and James Jatikwesen will have to battle it out for that Asimbreko, the votes in there, and especially the impact that this would have going into tomorrow. That's why you've seen a lot of activity in that Asimbreko area. But we've expanded our tentacles beyond just Asimbreko, because there are a number of places where we see a lot happening as well. Now, take a look at this. In the year 2020, the 2020 presidential elections, John Mahama closed the gap between himself and Nana Addo, or President Akufo-Addo, from the 5,000, the 2,000 we saw there in 2016 to a little over 1,000, almost 1,000 votes. Nana Addo, as president, then had 16,067. John Mahama polled 15,014. Now take a look at the parliamentary. So even though Nana Addo, as candidate of NPP, won the presidential in this Asin North constituency in the 2020 general elections, for the parliamentary, the NDC won. So it's a typical skirt and blouse situation there. So that's why this is a very, very typical swing constituency with a skirt and blouse situation. James Jatikwesen won with some 17,498. Now take note of the difference in the votes. James Jatikwesen of the NDC in 2021 with about almost 3,000 difference. But Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo won the presidential with just almost 1,000 difference as well. Now, everything will depend on the voter turnout tomorrow. The polls that have been put ahead, and then all the development we've seen and all the back and forth, the activity we've seen. If the voter turnout in 2020 during the general elections does not match what we are going to see tomorrow, that will also play a role in how things will play out tomorrow. We're here in your election command center. We're already on the ground. Stay with me. Right after this quick break, coming up next, we go straight into the Asin North constituency. My colleagues, Eric Mauna Egbeta and Kamla Kluche and the team, we have a strong representation on the ground. We talk about issues of security and interact with some of the constituents ahead of the by-election tomorrow here on your election command center. Stay with me. We will be back shortly after this quick break.
Gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint. As compared to other paint brands on the market, we take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo Superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Trading Enterprise is your leading mobile phone, accessories, and your electronic retail outlet. You can buy any item online at the comfort of your home from Franco Trading Enterprise. Just download the Franco Trading app on Google Play Store or App Store, or visit our website at www.francotrading.com. You can buy all brands of mobile phones, television, air conditioning, home theaters, and any other accessories. For online purchasing and more inquiries, just call us on 0501 502 670. Franco Trading Enterprise. We are still the home of quality mobile phones and accessories.
The TV3 and 3FM Great Expedition is here again. It's much bigger and exciting this time. Experience the breathtaking view of the ever-scenic Kafajato and the spectacular Wuli waterfall. Let's uncover the excitement around these mystical and extraordinary sceneries. Happening on Republic Day, Saturday, 1st July 2023. Come, let's make memories on Republic Day with the Republic Day Reloaded. We head to Kafajato as we hike to the summit. We visit the Wuli waterfall, and then we have a dinner and party at the Bamboo River Resort. This package includes transportation, breakfast, snacks, dinner, music on rotation, plus the whole experience, all for 650 Ghana cedis. For reservation, call 0541 159 715 or 0554 049 778. The TV3 3FM Republic Day Expedition. You don't want to miss this.
Sponsored by Heritage Christian College.
Kitchen Wars. The most anticipated cooking reality show is making its return to your screen. It is Kitchen Wars Season 2. Old school alumni get ready to compete for yet another epic showdown. Which alumni will take over from WAS?
The school that came in first place, West Africa!
Get your ladles out, sharpen your knives, and be ready to battle it out. Interested alumni must be in a group of 6 to participate. Simply send your details 0531 906 281 to register and stand the chance of being the best alumni in the kitchen. It's Kitchen Wars Season 2. Kitchen Wars, your school feed cook.
Kitchen Wars, coming soon on TV3.
Brought to you by Gino Tomato Mix.
And Napa Foods, say Napa, enye ono soko.
Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. Security is a big aspect of this by-election tomorrow. The Inspector General of Police has declared a zero tolerance of weapons in the Asin North constituency ahead of the Tuesday by-election. The directive, according to the police chief, is intended to eliminate potential conflict during the polls. My colleague Eric Maonegbeta sat through the meeting between the IGP, the leadership of the MPP, the NDC, and the LPG, and the Electoral Commission earlier today. Take a look.
The meeting was called at the instance of the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu Dampare, who was seeking to iron out concerns and grievances from all political parties and stakeholders ahead of the Asin North by-elections. It spanned over an hour and 30 minutes where deliberations over whether or not assault rifles or weapons would be allowed within the polling station area and even in the Asin North constituency. Concerns from the NDC ranging from name tags and identification of police personnel were all promptly addressed by the Inspector General of Police. Speaking to the media after the deliberations, Chair of the NDC, Johnson Esiedun Ketia, said they are optimistic the IGP and his men will do a yeoman's job.
So about meetings, I can say woman drop woman bodyguards. Okay. On say bodyguards, no so police for. Right. Inti woman so kura tio. Inti IGP will declare district, you know.
The IGP says he has declared the Asin North District weapon-free. The police service will be in charge of the entire security. So it is not just the MPs whose bodyguards will not be allowed to use weapons. This IGP has been responsible in the last 2 elections held. So we believe in him to do a good job with this one too.
For the NPP, they continue to remain confident in the elections process.
We are going to work in tandem with the police and all other security agencies that will be present at the election grounds.
For the Electoral Commission, all electoral materials are ready and distribution to various polling stations will be done with support from the political parties.
We have received all our election materials. We have packaged them, so tomorrow early in the morning we'll dispatch them to the various polling centers. We have also trained election officials. We are going to have all the representatives from all the political parties, that is NPP, LPG and NDC. We are going to have them at the police station before we start deployment.
The police, meanwhile, is seeking to use the latest in technology to combat any attempt by any group to foment trouble. Eric Mawina Egbeta, TV3 News, Asin State College, Asin, Breku.
Well, so that's the police showing off what they put in place there. But the Member of Parliament for the South Dike constituency, Nelson Ross Interfiam, raised some concerns about this directive by that's the IGP concerning their bodyguards, the MPs' bodyguards handling certain types of weapons tomorrow. Take a look.
I smell the police service being used as an accomplice to help the MPP win this seat.
Komla Kluchev, TV3 News, Asay North.
Well, let's cross over to the constituency now. We'll bring you the full length of that concern by Nelson Rox and Dafia McPaul concerning this particular directive by the IGP. My colleague Komla Kluchev spoke to him earlier. Eric Mauna Egbeta is also in the Asin North constituency together with Komla Kluche. They are in different positions as well. William Evansinkom is in the constituency together with the other young men in there. We have a strong representation in the Asin North constituency here on your election command center across all media journal platforms. Mauna, I know you've been doing quite some work ahead of tomorrow, interacting with some of the constituents as well. You sat through the meeting the IGP had with the various stakeholders earlier today. Beyond what we've heard, what were some of the major issues that both political parties raised concerns about?
Right then, Alfred, I think amongst many things, you've quite heard the concern which has become a bit of a conversation in the last few hours in relation to the possession of firearms and whether or not it's just going to be the police escorts of these MPs who will not be allowed to wield these weapons. From the indication and the understanding that we get from that meeting, it's going to be all district chief executives, all ministers, and all persons of high repute who may have special security protection or bodyguards or have police protection for wielding firearms. All of those firearms are being asked to be handed over to the police to allow for the police to be in charge of the entire election process. And in terms of offering security services, they do that. And so that's just clarity by way for viewers who are watching at home at this particular point. Also, the concern of individuals being identified in party paraphernalia ahead of the elections. tomorrow. That was raised by all parties. The electoral commission was present in that meeting as well, along with the police, and the assurance is that unlike today, where naturally, if I say naturally, per the country's laws, campaign is not supposed to be happening some 24 hours to the polls, but yet we saw quite a lot of that. Tomorrow, it will not be excused if you come to a polling station or you go to a voting area in party paraphernalia. That will not be excused, and you will be walked out or potentially picked up by the police. On conversations about mobile phones being taken into the polling booth for pictures to be taken as well, that remains not prohibited. In the election process, it was raised as well, would be addressed and would be dealt with as well. And so just a handful of the things that were raised in that particular meeting in terms of the presence of plainclothes police officers. Johnson Esedun-Ketia in that media interaction was quite categoric in stating that for them in the NDC, they raised a concern that they, prior to the engagement, have seen police officers with different units who have dreadlocks, who have braided hair, who have tattoos, wearing masks and the likes. They are particularly concerned that these individuals could be seen carrying out operation tomorrow when the election kicks off. And they say that the assurance has been given to them by the Inspector General of Police that only uniformed police officers with their names embroidered on their uniforms would be allowed to be in charge of the elections process. And so for any special unit outside of this, that's according to Johnson Esedun-Ketia, they'll not be allowed to be a part of the election process. So for the anti-robbery squad and the other squads who are carrying out different operations, the criminal investigation department, the argument they make is that they do not have anything doing in this particular elections, and as such, just plainclothes officials who they can identify to take charge of the election process with hindsight of activities that was witnessed at the Ayawaso West Wogon by-elections out there.
I see. Now, if you just joined us, these are live videos and of what's happening in the Asin North constituency ahead of the crucial by-election tomorrow. My colleague Eric Mauna Egbeta connecting with us live from the Asin North constituency tonight. Mauna, I see a lot of activity still behind you. Now, tell me specifically where you are in this constituency tonight and what's happening there ahead of the by-election poll start at 7 a.m. tomorrow.
Right, so we're currently on the outskirts of the Asin North constituency, and some of our viewers may have been on that Twitter space a short while ago where we talked amongst many things about how a lot of the action is not, or a lot of where individuals can go and de-stress, relax, it's not in the Asin North constituency in itself because the place is largely not developed. And so we're on the outskirts of the Asin North constituency, a bit much into the Asin Fosu area, which is in the Asin Central constituency, because accommodation for us really is out of the constituency at this particular point. And so it's just Asin Fosu in the Asin Central constituency now where we're headed to go and catch a break, and then we return at dawn tomorrow for the coverage here on your election command center. And just a part there where earlier, a short while ago, the lights went out and there was a Jama session by supporters of the NDC who are here in quite number as well. We started singing loudly in support of James Jachikwesin. They've taken turns, done their Jama session. There've been loud music as well with the Faniform tune, which they have ascribed to because James Kwesin is on, it's number 3 on the ballot paper. And so anywhere you go within the Asin North constituency, anybody who's campaigning for James Jachikwesin, the only thing you see is either they show up the 3 sign or they say Faniform. And then for Charles Opoku, it's number one, Esro has been the case. But currently at the Asin Fosu area, a lot of these individuals are distressing waiting to go on into tomorrow, where battle proper will happen. Because when I say battle proper, that's where all of your campaigning will come to a note. Whether or not you've been able to convince the delegates enough, and you've run the viewers through a lot of the analysis as to how much of a swing constituency this is, even in terms of the voting in the skirt and blouse and the likes. And so that's the picture really for viewers at home as to exactly what it is in the Asin North constituency. And we've asked some of the constituents, indigents, who will be voting tomorrow, as to exactly what they've made of all of the attention that's come to the constituency, what they make of it, whether or not they are decided on who they're voting for. I spoke to a number of them, and for many of them, first off, they are relishing in the moment, but they are clearing their minds as to exactly who they'll be voting for in under 12 hours.
I see. Now, Mauna, on the issue of security, you mentioned earlier that the IGP indicated that these strange-looking personnel are not going to be on duty. You described some of them as wearing dreadlocks and then also having earrings as well. Now, have you seen any of them that's today, after going through the constituency ahead of the by-election tomorrow?
Right. So at the Asin State College, where the police is stationed and from where the deployment is done, I'm sure tomorrow by about 6 a.m. When the IGP addresses his men, we see videos from the Asin State College, to be specific. These individuals, some spotted there, not in the regalia which has been captured on social media, to which a lot of the NDC folks have raised concerns. This time a bit covered up in plain clothes as well, but they are very much present here. The assurance now has been given that they may not be actively involved in the election governance process from the side of the security agencies. And so we will wait to see exactly what it is. But if you've interacted with the police for quite a while, these are individuals who can easily blend into the community, pick up intelligence, and then they can assist in investigations and the like. And so it's not every time that you could have some of these anti-robbery squads, criminal investigations departments, officers, and the likes of plainclothes officers that you see them and recognize them, but they are very much within the constituency and not dressed in the regalia to which we saw them, and their hair hanging loosely, some quite covered up, as we visited the Asin State College earlier for the interaction between the police service, the Electoral Commission, and the three parties who are quite represented in the by-elections tomorrow. Okay, and Mauna, finally, before I let you go, you've been talking to the constituents as well about the Electoral Commission. I saw Dr. Sribokweku there. Have you already seen them as to taking position and making the materials available at the various polling stations ahead of the polls opening tomorrow, 7 a.m.? Right. So the indication after speaking to the chair of the Electoral Commission in the region is that a lot of them will be done quite early tomorrow, that all of the materials are ready, they're ready for distribution, but they will be doing so in collaboration with the political parties as well, just as means her own words of opening up the space for a lot of transparency in the lead up to the elections tomorrow. And so a lot of the distribution, according to the indication we got on that interaction, is that it will be done quite early tomorrow. The presence of the political parties will be crucial to ensure that nobody raises concerns to and fro as to how all of that has been done. And if you're conversant with the election process as well, the political parties are quite represented strongly at the area where these election materials are being guarded, Alfred. Great stuff. Eric Mawanagbata, thank you so much for bringing us update live from the Asin North constituency ahead of that crucial by-election tomorrow. We're here on your election command center. We have our strong men on the ground to bring you all the details, the exclusive detail, the analysis, everything that you need to know about what's happening
in the Asin North constituency, as you've seen before, during the by-election tomorrow and the aftermath as well, here on your election command center. As we do know, Professor Kobe Mensah is political marketing expert. He's joining us on Zoom for a quick one on this. Professor Kobe Mensah, thank you for your time. Now, we've seen a lot of activity and how things rounded up yesterday and some of the comments that have been made, especially the one relating to James's question by the president, which has drawn some reactions. Will this impact or influence the voting pattern in any way?
I think that the political parties have not, and I'm saying that with caution, that the political parties have not still come to terms with the changing nature of the electorate. Obviously, we have from time and time again said that the political parties aren't developmental enough because the very reasons why we do democracy or elections are conducted, etc., is to better the lot of the people. Of course, procedurally, somebody would say that we have matured in democracy, but when it comes to what we call democratic dividend, we haven't seen that happen because the people are always complaining. Not just they complaining, but we see over promises, under delivery, and sometimes no delivery at all. So you would think that the political parties would focus on the reasons why they ask the people to vote, i.e., their livelihoods, development in communities, human capital development, and make sure that they can focus their messages on these issues. Unfortunately, that's not what we hear. Why would someone, a voter, spend their time to go to a rally to listen to whether someone will be imprisoned or not, when the bigger issues in their lives had not been answered? I think that we must focus the political messaging on the reasons why people put politicians in place, i.e., development issues, not about what we call court cases. I don't think that anybody goes to the polling station or the polling booth with court cases in their minds. I think that they would look at the performances of both the the parliamentary candidate who happened to be the incumbent, although he's in court, and the performances of the opposition, which represents this administration, and ask themselves whether they will be better served by the parliamentary candidate who is the incumbent, but for court reasons, this by-election, or whether they will be better served by the opposition who represents the government, or the current administration. This is what the people will be thinking about, not the court cases.
I see. Now, let's look at the issue that you talk about with respect to development, right, and the maturity of the Asin North constituency, reactions that we've seen so far. And this is an area where you raise concerns about. We continue to see these overnight developments and everything that goes on ahead of the by-election, and then concerns are raised as to why that should be the case. It is working for the politician, but are the constituents positioned to, as it were, still stand by what they've decided on regardless of what comes to them overnight?
Alfred, you see, the politicians have always thought that they could woodwink the voters and have their way. They have engaged in so many unethical, undemocratic, deceptive, deceitful practices. Sometimes they've gotten away with it, but sometimes they haven't been lucky. We were here when Kumawu happened. They took almost everything possible to that constituency to make sure that people believe that they work. We have seen footages of traditional leaders coming out to complain that since the Kumawu elections, by-elections, they have deserted the place. The supposed development had been truncated. I am sure the people of Asin North have heard it. And I'm sure that they've seen some of the footages. I don't think that they would fall to that particular gimmick. And if they do, obviously, it is, it goes to tell us, how politicians would, do anything to set us back in terms of our democratic practices. I think that the NDC, on the other hand, would not sit by just to allow, the incumbents to use that advantage, pretending as though they are developing or they are providing the crucial infrastructure just for the votes. I am sure that they would actually explain to the people what it means. But crucially, I don't think that even it would be the words of the NDC. I think that for voters to actually vote for someone, especially an incumbent, your track record usually, and here I'm talking about incumbent as the MP, your track record usually would make the, would do the words for you, or would do the talking for you. I'm sure if Kwesi had actually performed before this particular issue, definitely people would see the evidences and based on which they would vote or not to vote for him. Now, I think that the idea that, all of a sudden the government is doing something will come into comparison with the almost 4 years that Kwesi had actually been in at the seat or on the seat, and make their decisions whether they would want him back or not. I think that would be the crucial decision that the voters would make, not necessarily the overnight development and the talk about he's going to prison, etc. I am sure that if they like him, based on his track record, they would actually vote him back, not even necessarily what the NDC and the MPP are talking about. Now, in comparison, I don't see, because we have heard so many complaints from constituencies all over the country. People have hooted at their MPs. People have called for their MPs to die so that they can get by-elections. I don't think that we've heard those kinds of noises from Asen North, for example. That actually tells you that perhaps they're satisfied with their MP. In fact, if that was the case, we would have even heard it more at the time that the by-election is going on. But I don't think any of us have actually seen any footage suggesting that people do not like him. And that really makes a very big statement for both parties. And perhaps that speaks to why the NDC is having more belief than the MPP, because they have been in Asen North for close to a week and a half or 2 weeks. In fact, they have moved the entire machinery to Asen North. We only saw the president and some MPP bigwigs, recently, going into Asen North. So it tells you the level of belief for these two political parties in their chances to win that particular seat. And going back to the recent history, of course, 2020 elections, NDC won it. Previously, MPP had held the seat. That seat had been on a balance 4-3, to the advantage of the MPP. But the most recent history is that the NDC won that particular seat. So if you take the idea that the NDC had won the seat and the idea that the people had not shown a discontent against the candidacy of what you call Kwesi,
yes,
then of course it stands to suggest that perhaps he can nick this one than the NPP person.
We'll see how things play out. And Professor Kobe Mensah, appreciate your time. Thank you. He's a political marketing expert with the University of Ghana Business School. And as you saw the numbers there, tomorrow, this is how the representation will be like. That is the total number of eligible voters, 41,168. This is according to the Electoral Commission's data. Total polling stations, 99. Electoral areas, 18. And we'll see how that's the eligible voters, the number of them that will turn up to vote tomorrow. But as we've seen in the previous by-elections in this country, there's always that reduction in the numbers as compared to the general elections. But this is your Election Command Center. Coverage of this crucial by-election starts tomorrow at 6 a.m. here on your Election Command Center across all media journal platforms. Stay with us. We'll bring you everything that you need to know. But coming up next, the Ghana National Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union has directed members to lay down their tools until government commits to a timeline for fixing the bad roads in the heavy industrial area. We transport over 6.7 million liters of petroleum products daily. My colleague George Queening was in the area to assess the situation, exactly how bad the roads are and why these tanker drivers have been left with no option than to go on this strike. Take a look.
Tanker drivers who transport petrol, LPG and premix within this very enclave have been dealing with this deplorable roads for years, and concerns put before government and the relevant authorities have fallen on deaf ears. It's a reason they are charting this very path. All roads leading to the 4 petroleum products depot in Tema, Takoradi, Kumasi and Buipe are in deplorable conditions. The nationwide strike declared by the Ghana National Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union is to push government to face the bad roads to improve the supply of petroleum products across the country.
This has nothing to do with politics. It's purely about fixing the road. So we want them to fix the road. If they don't commit themselves, for us to see that they committed themselves by fixing the road, this strike will continue.
Considering the high levels of revenue generated from the sector, the union says it was high time government intervenes.
His Excellency the President, all right, I was part of the meeting with him in 2017 at Jubilee House, and he instructed Amwakwata, all right, to fix this road because of the area, the enclaves. But the man refused to. He awarded the contract to a contractor for 2 solid years now. So this just simple road for about 7 kilometers. My brother, indeed, if we are serious as a country, with this hazardous product around these enclaves, can't we fix it?
There are 9 depots within the Tama heavy industrial area. Each tanker transports 13,500 liters of petroleum products, bringing total liftings of 500 tankers daily to 6.75 million liters from Tama alone. The repercussion will be dire, taking into consideration the total daily liftings in the other depots, including Takoradi, Kumasi and Buipe. The Tama Fuel Company Limited is one of the 9 depots within the Tama heavy industrial area. On a daily basis, it transports 4 million liters of petrol and diesel and 1 million liters of LPG, and that's on the average 120 trucks doing the transportation. This very strike is impacting on their business.
As you can see, we've got an empty truck park today as a result of the tanker driver union strike. This means that we've lost revenue. Once the trucks load, that's how we make revenue here. Also, as you can see with these big tanks, once we load, we create space for the vessels at Anchorage to be able to discharge their products into the tank. If you're not loading, it means that we are not going to be able to create the space. The vessels will be lined up for a longer period of time than anticipated.
The situation.
Here's the problem that this may cause, because long queues, according to the LPG marketers, are expected in the next 48 hours at various LPG outlets across the country if this is not addressed, or the concerns of the tanker drivers are not addressed. The Vice President of the LPG Market Association, Gabriel Kumi, says this has to be done immediately for the tanker drivers to go back to work.
If this situation is not averted as immediately as possible, we are going to have some crisis of a sort on hand. Presently, the stocks we have in our tanks could be run out in the next 48 hours. If by Wednesday the situation is not averted, we will start seeing some queues in our petrol stations and in our LPG retail outlets. And if that persists to Thursday, Friday, movement of people and goods and services in this country is going to be grounded. And if that happens, it has very, very, very serious consequences for our economy and for our country. Already, our economy is not doing too well. The last thing we want to hear is that there's restriction in terms of movement of goods and services. and that could impact so negatively to the life of our economy.
Well, there's something that we'll keep an eye on, definitely be updating you about coming up next. Following the attack on bullion vans over the period leading to the death of police officers in 2 instances in the last couple of years, the Bank of Ghana directed institutions to switch to armored vehicles. But there's been a lax in compliance to this particular directive. And let's go on to Zoom now. Thankfully, Brigadier General Benjamin Amoah-Boakye is Director General Legal Services, and then that's at the Ghana Armed Forces, and then also the Company Secretary for the Defense Industrial Holdings Company Limited, DHOC. I thank you so much, Brigadier General, for staying up to join us here on Ghana Tonight. First of all, we continue to see these cases of bullion vans, or that's vehicles carrying cash, being attacked. What has created this fertile ground for such instances to continue to recur?
Well, Alfred, thanks for the question. But before I make any comments, let me first of all express my condolence to the bereaved family and then the Ghana Police Service at large for the unfortunate incident. We've all been working together with the Ghana Police Service to make sure that we provide the needed security and safety for the transiting of cash in the country. So it is very unfortunate. But we're hoping that with lessons drawn from this particular incident, we will be in a better position to provide the needed security so that the business of transiting cash can go on smoothly. Now, the question begs for a detailed analysis of the whole business of transiting cash. And I believe that if we look at the context in general, right from the directives coming from the Bank of Ghana and the effort put in by the Association of Companies that deal in cash transiting, and then the Association of Banks, the loopholes are what these criminals are cashing in. And I believe that with the measures being put in place now, if we go by it into details, I'm sure we would reduce it significantly, if not eradicate it completely. Now, don't forget that as we sit and plan to deal with the menace of armed robbery, the robbers are also sitting and planning how to outwit us. And so if we don't deal with it holistically and we try to deal with it piecemeal, as we seem to be doing now, they will always be a step ahead of us. Let me say the Ghana Police Service is doing a yeoman's job, and that is why it has minimized the level and the frequency of such attacks. However, if you look at the whole business of transiting cash and the fact that you need to offer full protection for every single individual involved in the cash transiting, I believe that there's something that has gone amiss.
Right.
And if you take a look at the recent incident, you see there were some lapses. I'm not going to condemn any individual or any company that was involved, but all I want to say is that we could have done better.
In fact, and on that point, that's what I want to find out from you. What are some of the immediate measures that can be taken or should be taken to address this growing incidents of bullion vans being attacked?
I think immediately what we need to do is to make sure that the directives coming from the Bank of Ghana is enforced to the letter. And what that means is that all vehicles that don't meet the Bank of Ghana standards must be moved from our streets immediately. And I'm happy to note that the Bank of Ghana has given that directive. Now, if you look at the armored bullion vans that are used, they offer enough security to the driver, to the escort, and to the tellers who will be in the car. Let me just use ours for as an instance. Our vehicle is fitted with a state-of-art surveillance equipment. The driver has body armor, steel helmet. We have 2 police escorts. Note that what you usually see in town is 1 police escort, but we have 2 police escorts, all of whom are wearing body armor, meaning bulletproof vest with ballistic helmet. The escort, the driver, and the teller who gets down to pick the cash are all protected. And they're all wearing body cameras that provide live feed to our control center. And so every single vehicle that departs from our center, wherever it gets to, we are able to monitor and have live feed. If you look at the video that has gone viral, as much as I don't want to give out any trade secret, you would realize that you could see the motor bikes approaching from a distance.
That's right. And in fact, that leads me to the standard operating procedure, because that has also come up. Is the transportation of cash all about the vehicle? I mean, so an armored bullion van, yes, will be transporting the cash. Is that all what is required in the SOPs for transporting cash? Because you talk about some of the lapses in this case.
Well, I think for now, we haven't gotten to a period where we'll be talking about a cashless society, in which case we'll be dealing more with e-money. So definitely there will be transiting of cash, there'll be movement of cash. We're talking about movement of cash from Bank of Ghana to branches of banks, picking cash from customers from their shops and supermarkets and things like that, and also feeding ATM machines. So when you look at it from that angle, what it means is that the key players, being the banks, the customers, and the CIT providers, service providers, would have to work hand in hand to ensure that the safety, the security of the cash that we undertake to transit, the security of the individuals who are involved, in this case, the tellers, the police escorts, and the drivers, are protected. And their safety are guaranteed 24/7.
Indeed. Brigadier General Benjamin Amoah Boakye, I thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this and the recommendations as well. Director General, Legal Services of Ghana Armed Forces, also Company Secretary, Defense Industrial Holdings Company Limited, DHOC. Let me thank you so much, and well, want to say thank you for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. Remember, tomorrow, St. North by-election. This is your election command center. Coverage starts at 6 a.m. We have a strong representation in the constituency already across all media journal platforms, TV3, 3FM, Onia FM, Onia TV, Akuma FM, Connect FM, 3news.com. We will bring you everything you need to know. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.